Good morning. The April 9th meeting of the Senate Finance Committee will come to order. We have two bills on the agenda. We're going to start with Senator Port's Housing Omnibus Budget Bill. Welcome to the Finance Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. The cost of housing is higher than ever in Minnesota, and the dream of home ownership is slipping out of reach for more and more families. Cuts to federal housing programs and tariffs on essential building materials are threatening housing affordability across the state, and now is the time to ensure that every Minnesotan has a safe and stable place to call home. This bill follows on historic investments in 2023 and 24 by supporting critically needed housing resources, including family homelessness prevention, support for workforce housing infrastructure in greater Minnesota, and programs to help new families own a home for the first time. Members, this is a pretty short bill. There are only 6 change items in it on the finance portion. Happy to answer any questions and have Mr. Olafson here to walk through the spreadsheet. The agency is also here to answer questions.
Thank you. Before you do that, would you like to have us add, you have a couple of, it looks like, technical amendments?
I do, Mr. Chair. I have the A8.
Okay, Senator Murphy moves the A8 amendment. Is there any discussion on it? If Senator Pratt has a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just wondering if we could get a description of the A8.
Sure. Senator Port?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is just a technical amendment for consistency recommended by the reviser. It changes the from the words from in fiscal year 26 to the first year.
Senator Pratt, anything else?
That's it.
If not, Senator Murphy's motion to adopt the A8 amendment, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. The A9 amendment, Senator Port, you want to quickly describe that?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Chair. Part of this bill has a task force to look at property insurance. Originally, we were looking at both residential property insurance as well as commercial and small business. We have sort of narrowed that down based on feedback from stakeholders who are going to be on the task force, saying that this is just simply too much for them to look at in a short period of time. So this removes common interest communities, cooperatives, and small businesses to keep it on residential and commercial because that's how multifamily is in the insurance field. So this just narrows down.
Senator Friends moves the A9 amendment. So moved. Senator Dames.
Senator Port, could you tell me what's going to be the scope of this committee?
The task force?
Yes, this task force. What's going to be the scope?
Yes, thank you, Senator Dames. The task force is on page
21.
21, and they will look at the factors that are affecting insurance, the rising insurance costs, based on a number of ideas laid out on page 22. They'll review risk mitigation, liability, enforcement and oversight, possibilities of reinsurance, estate-based insurance, factors that increase claims, and other areas that would strengthen and stabilize the homeownership market. We understand that costs are going up quite significantly and want to get a handle on that, but we also know we need to keep a strong insurance market in Minnesota. So looking at it from both of those sides and bring some recommendations back to the legislature on how we can stabilize the market.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Senator Dames.
Thank you, Senator Port. Can you tell me, will this task force be also looking at all the rules and regulations that have been passed in the last few years and the effect of that on insurance costs? Will that be part of this study, or this task force?
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would assume that that would be in factors that increase claim costs or areas that would strengthen or stabilize risk mitigation. There's a portion talking about liability laws, which we certainly have added some. So yes, I would assume that would be a part of it as they look at sort of the whole insurance market and what is causing the rising costs.
Follow-up, Mr. Chair?
Senator Dames.
Thank you, Senator Port. And again, another question for you, and that is, years ago, not too many years ago, there was a move to try to get a state-run homeowners platform for insurance. Is that the genesis to look at that? Is that where this is really going?
Senator Port.
Mr. Chair, Senator Dames, that is not my intent from this. We are looking at all of the different ways we can stabilize the program. We know some other states have had state-based programs with varying levels of success. We've also seen some reinsurance programs be more successful in other states. And we really know that each individual state has a unique market, and that's why we really want to dig in to figure out what is most useful for Minnesota's market.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to follow up,
Go ahead.
and this is a comment and not a question, but I'm kind of surprised we would be talking about reinsurance when it seems like the other side of the aisle is just anti-reinsurance. So I'm surprised it's coming back up now for property and casualty. But thank you, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to ask questions, and thank you, Senator Port.
On to Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Port. Is there any guidance here to look at the national models that are out there from INCOIL and those other agencies that are out there? I don't see anything in here to look at that national model policy that's out there. I know INCOIL works hard at developing those national models, and I'm just concerned that there's nowhere in here that they're looking at that wide sweep.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Based on the folks who are on the task force, we wanted to make sure that people who work in this industry were included. I would assume that they would bring those ideas, as well as I know the Department of Commerce is looking at those as well, and they are also on the task force. So I would assume that that would be discussed. We didn't specifically spell that exact thing out.
Follow up, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And well, Senator Port, as one of those folks from Minnesota that attends those, I don't see anyone else from Minnesota. There's very few people from Minnesota that actually goes to those INCOIL meetings. So I'm concerned that that might be an avenue that we should direct people to actually look at the national model codes and those efforts in order to make sure they're included, to be reviewed. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Howe. I am certainly willing to have conversations with you about that and see if it's something we should add on the floor.
Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair Marty. Thank you, Senator Port. I support this section. I know we've had conversation about the mix of who's on this task force. And, if we're going to look at housing, and the multi-housing association isn't on here. And, when we look at the volume of housing, especially in the 7-county metro area, I think they're a main player that needs to be on here. And I'm going to pick on one of the people you have on here. I think they're probably more relevant than the climate science expert. And if we're looking at housing here in Minnesota, multi-housing association represents the biggest swath of units across the state. So I will probably have an amendment to do something about that if we don't get that done before the floor. But I think we need a task force. I think we need to really look at it. What is the state doing to combat the tripling of insurance for housing units, especially in the multi-housing area, or multi-family housing area? Thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Draheim. They will be added. We are finalizing the list of folks who will be on it. We didn't want to add it here because it's pure policy. We're going to add it on the floor. Multi-housing will be a piece of that. And I will say to the climate science expert, insurance companies are telling us the main reason that insurance is going up is because of climate change and weather events. And so as we're looking long-term, we think that that voice is critically important in the conversation, but I agree with you on the multi-housing, and they will be added.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Howe.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Senator Porter, as long as we're looking at membership, I would suggest that we look at someone from Department of Labor and Industry, Construction Codes and Standards to add to that. So we're actually building homes to the model codes instead of, much of Minnesota does not enforce any building code standard. And building codes actually reduce our insurance costs. So that's another avenue I think we need to look at.
Senator Port? No comment. Any further discussion on the A9 amendment? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Mr. Olafson, do you want to walk us through the spreadsheet?
Sure. Mr. Chair, members, for the record, my name is Eric Olafson, Senate Fiscal Analyst for the Housing and Homelessness Prevention Committee. In your packets, you should find a 3-page spreadsheet, top left corner, SF2298-first engrossment-detailed spreadsheet, timestamp in the upper right-hand corner of updated 4/7/2025, 1:17 p.m. Just to orient you to the spreadsheet, column A shows the agencies and the appropriations for those specific agencies. Column B shows the funds from which these appropriations come from. Column C through E show the biennial totals from the February forecasts. Column F through H show the biennial totals from the governor's revised recommendations. And then columns I through Q is what we'll focus on today. This is the Senate File 2298 first engrossment before you. So pages 1 and 2 basically follow the riders as they show up in Article 1 of the bill. But I'll just focus on the change items on page 3 of the spreadsheet. Just to also inform you, the Housing and Homelessness Prevention Committee received a general fund target for fiscal years 25 through 27 of $3 million from the general fund and $1 million in the of additional spending in the 28-29 biennium from the general fund. And the bill in front of you does meet both targets. So on page 3 of the spreadsheet, beginning with the Housing Finance Agency on line 85, there is additional one-time spending of $10.15 million from the general fund for the Family Homeless Prevention and Assistance Program, or FHPAP. On line 86, for Greater Minnesota Housing Infrastructure Grants, this also comes from the general fund, $2 million of in FY26, and then it's added to the base beginning in FY28 of $500,000 each year, beginning in FY28 and each year thereafter. On line 87 for the community-based first-generation home buyer down payment assistance program through MMCDC, or the Midwest Minnesota Community Development Corporation, there's $2 million in FY26 from the general fund, and then $450,000 ongoing beginning in FY28, so $900,000 in the 28-29 biennium. On line 88, there's a $10 million reduction to the community stabilization program specifically for single-family housing. So this cancels out the $10 million in FY25 for that program. So it's $10 million of savings to the general fund. And that concludes the change items for the Housing Finance Agency. Moving to the Legislative Coordinating Commission, on line 91 for the task force on homeowners and commercial property insurance, there's $200,000 one time in fiscal year 26 from the general fund. And then on line 94, there's a repeal of the transfer to the housing support account. This came from chapter 127 last session, of ongoing $450,000 per fiscal year beginning in FY25 transfer to this housing support account from the general fund. This repeals that transfer and cancels all money in that account back to the general fund for a savings of $450,000 to the general fund in FY25 and then $900,000 to the general fund in 26-27, and identical 900,000 in 28-29. So on line 95, you can see the total change items in column I. So for FY25, it's net savings of 10.45 million. In column M for 26-27, it's new spending from the general fund of 13.45 million. And on line Q, net new spending of 1 million from the general fund in 28-29. So on lines 99 and 100, that just shows that the target was 3 million and 1 million, as I previously mentioned, and line 100 shows that the bill in front of you meets that target. And with that, that concludes my walkthrough.
Are there any questions from Mr. Olofsson? No. Discussion of the bill. Senator Port, I'm told that Senator Mohammed is not able to be here right now, but she had an A10 amendment. Are you familiar with that? She had said you might be familiar with it.
I have briefly seen it. I don't know that I could describe it well, but I have seen, I saw it briefly last night.
I'm told it's posted, but we will circulate it here and just see, again, if somebody's interested in offering that. The A10 amendment.
Thank you.
And Mr. Olofsson, could you go through and explain this amendment?
Mr. Chair, members, on this impacts the eligibility for households for the rental assistance program through Minnesota Housing, also known as the Bring It Home program. On line 1.10 of the amendment, it strikes the language eligibility shall be recertified every year thereafter.
Okay. Senator Mohammed is here now, so she can speak to her own. Did you want to move the A10 amendment, Senator Mohammed?
Yes, Mr. Chair, thank you.
Senator Mohammed moves the A10 amendment. Could you go over make the pitch for the amendment?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Port, for this great bill. I was driving in and listening to your presentation again, and it was awesome. The A10 amendment, Mr. Chair, basically realigns our state assistance program with our federal program, and essentially says if a household at the time for recertification is at 51%, they should be eligible to be recertified.
Questions on the amendment? Senator Dames.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question would be, it says eligibility shall be recertified every year thereafter. So if somebody is eligible this year, then next year you'd ask them to be recertified, is that correct?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Dames, for the question. It's, they will recertify until their funds run out.
Thank you.
Further discussion on the amendment? Senator Dames, Senator Draheim, I'm sorry.
So the, currently, what's in statute is that they have to recertify every year. You know, to me, this is ongoing, and there should be a point in time where they should be recertified. So I kind of have a problem with the amendment. So I don't know if it's, you know, every 2 years or every 3 years. I don't know how that interacts with the federal government. Can you just explain that a little bit? I'm not familiar with Section 8 of the United States Housing Act of 1937.
Senator Port or Senator Mohammed?
I can jump in a little bit. So when it talks about an eligible household, this is just for certifying that they meet that minimum threshold. There is another process for figuring out when they no longer qualify or have used all of the benefit that they're allowed. But this is just talking about eligibility for that first piece. And in the federal Section 8 program, once they're eligible, they don't recertify that initial eligibility every year. They go until they've hit the end point. And in our program, as we built it, we built both in. So they recertify every year, but still also like have that endpoint, which is tracked, and that's how you get to figure out when they're no longer qualified, either because of the amount that they make or because they have used the full amount that we give them. So having them recertify every year, knowing that they haven't reached the endpoint, is just redundant and additional paperwork that's unneeded that I think we just didn't fully understand when we built this program. And so before standing it up, we want to make sure that we're have the same both incoming and end step for vouchers.
Thank you.
Further discussion? Senator Dames.
At this point, I'd like to do an oral amendment,
Senator Dames, go ahead.
and that would strike on line 110, strike eligibility shall be recertified every year thereafter. That is being taken out. I would strike that so it's left in.
Senator Dames, I think you're just saying you would oppose the amendment because that would mean the amendment has nothing in it.
That's the other way to look at it.
Okay.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair. Obviously, I oppose the oral amendment, Mr. Chair.
Senator Dames, normally I think I would encourage you to just drop that and just oppose the amendment, but if you wish to.
I'll rescind it.
Okay. Is there, Senator Pratt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question is for Senator Porter, Senator Mohammed. So let's say a family is eligible and within a year or 2 years, they no longer qualify. They still have those funds until they run out? Because I thought it was an annual thing, or how do we ensure that somebody continues to be eligible for these funds on an ongoing basis?
Senator Porter, could you explain it a little better?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Senator Pratt. There is additional pieces of this program that are not in this amendment. It's quite a large program that talk about expending the funds and talk about sort of exiting out the program once you get to certain thresholds. The eligibility piece is only for that original entrance. And then there's other processes that are in place to move folks through the program.
So, Senator Porter,
So,
in other
Mr.
words.
Chair?
Go ahead, Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, Senator Port, we have a piece in law that recertifies historically. Is that what you're saying? It doesn't seem to make sense to me.
Senator Porter.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. I'm not sure if I fully understand your question, but there is other statutes in law that govern how you exit the program when you are no longer eligible.
Mr. Chair?
Senator Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, I mean, the answer seems to be, if I understand it, we go back and recertify their initial eligibility. That doesn't make sense on why we're recertifying. The purpose for recertifying is to ensure that somebody still qualifies for the program on an annual basis. And maybe it doesn't need to be every year, maybe it needs to be every other year or something like that, but it seems, the answer that I'm getting saying that we're only looking at the eligibility at time of enrollment would mean that every year we're going back historically and saying, did they qualify last year, 2 years ago, 3 years ago? And we have these other mechanisms for ensuring ongoing eligibility. I don't understand why we would do that, and I don't know that we fully understand this amendment enough to adopt it yet. I'm just wondering if Senate Council could weigh in on this one.
Mr. Chair, if I might, let me try to explain it a different way. So in order to qualify for the program, you have to be at 50% of the area median income or below. And then the program, once you're in the program, the way that vouchers work is that you pay 30% of your household income for rent, and the voucher covers the rest. And so if you move up to 51% of the area median income, but your income still is only, it does not cover, 30% of your income does not cover rent, the voucher stays until you reach that point where 30% of your income covers rent and the voucher is no longer needed. But because we don't have enough resources to give everyone who does not meet that 30% of their income covers their rent, that would be a huge number of families in Minnesota. We are a very rent-burdened state. We had to put a restriction on who can join the program. And so you have to be under that 50% median income to join the program. Then it's okay as your income rises. We want people's income to rise in order to get folks off the program. But in order to get off the program, we want you to be at a place where you are paying no more than 30% of your income on rent. That's the purpose of the voucher, is to fill that gap. And so that's the way that the recertification happens, because you have to submit your rent and your income so that they know what the gap is between them. And if there's still a gap, that's what the voucher pays. Does that make sense?
Senator Pratt, were you the one? Go ahead. Whoever, Senator Howard.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
Can you tell us what that statute is that has those other guidelines in? Because I still think that, I don't know if this was looked at in housing, but for us to just take this without knowing and being able to look at those other requirements, it's kind of tough for us to say this is the appropriate direction to go. I think we should, if we can get that statute, take a look at this, and because I've got some concerns. I think that eligibility recertification every year is there for a purpose, and without looking at these other methods to check, I think without having that information, it's tough for me to say that this is a good idea.
Mr. Chair.
Senator Port.
The statute is listed at the top of the amendment. It's 462A.2095. And what I will say is the way that this is written right now means you could join with a 40, if your income is 49% of the area median income. And then if the area median income in your area changes and you're suddenly 51%, you would be kicked off the program, even if your income is only able to pay, if 30% of your income is only able to pay half your rent. So the need for voucher would still exist for that family, but because area median income changed or whatnot, they would be kicked off the program. We put the eligibility at 50% simply because we don't have enough money to give to everybody who needs this. So we don't want to kick folks off the program who initially qualified under that as their income shifts slightly. As long as they are, ideally, the eligibility to the program would be if 30% of your income cannot pay your rent. That's what ideally it would be. But that would take many millions more dollars than we have. That's how Section 8 works. That's how this program, we would love for it to work, but that is why there are such long lines, years and years of waiting lines for Section 8. And so we knew we had to reduce eligibility to just a smaller pool of people. Not that there aren't people above 50% area median income who desperately need this program and who we should continue to fund this program for if they met that initial eligibility through the years. We don't want to take vouchers back from people who still need them.
I'll try one quick explanation and want to move on if we can, because, this amendment is because Section 8 is very limited. There's a long waiting list. You can't even get on the waiting list if you don't wait for several years. And once you get on the waiting list, then when you finally get to qualify, you start getting this. If your income is slightly higher, but you're still able, your income is going to cost you 42% of your rent would cost you 42% of your income. You would still be currently under federal law and under the state law. Other than this, you would still continue to get the Section 8 funding, so you can bring it down to 30%.
That's
But
correct.
the concern here is that there aren't not enough money for everyone, and so therefore, what we're doing here, under the current system, what you're doing is you're kicking people off in the middle of it, which throws them out of their households in many cases and so on.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
Is there further discussion? I think you were intending this is a fairly uncontroversial thing, but I see it's not becoming it. Senator Draheim and Senator Dames.
Thank you. Great discussion. I'm glad we're having a very important program. I don't remember this coming up in committee. Was there a bill that did this, or is this last minute?
Mr. Chair, Senator Draheim, it was essentially an error found that we are just trying to correct.
Okay, because I want to support it. I just don't know if it's been properly vetted is my only concern. So, thank you.
Should we, Senator Port, or Senator Mohammed, I think you see it as a technical thing, but there's a lot of questions about it. Should we set it aside right now and consider it? I mean, because I think you're saying it was just an error you're trying to correct.
That's correct, Mr. Chair.
That is correct, Senator Marty. I think last year when we created the program 2 years ago, the goal of it was to basically take a look at the federal Section 8 program and make sure that it matches perfectly. In that process, there's been one small error. It doesn't really do major change to the program, but it ensures that we continue to house people as much as possible. And so people who don't qualify will not qualify for the program because we have so many people on the wait list.
Is there further discussion? Senator Dames.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chair, and I guess my concern is if you go on at 50% or less, and then you go over 50%, you're still eligible. But if you have somebody that applied at 51%, they're not eligible. So what we're doing is we're picking winners and losers. We're saying that if you applied at 51%, you're not eligible, but if you applied at 50% and then had an increase in income, and it went up to 52%, but you still weren't meeting 30% of your rent cost, that you would be ineligible. So what we're really doing is we're saying once you're on, you're grandfathered in, and the folks that, so you could have somebody that's at 50% that can't be accepted because they run out of money or are running out of money, and yet somebody at 51 or 52% could be eligible. I can't support that.
Senator Dames, I think there are lots of people who might be at 60% of their income who would qualify. There just isn't the funding for it, which is why they put the 50% limit in there, just so you didn't have, because you're already postponing, you can't get on the waiting list right away because there are so many people, and throwing people in and out of housing is the concern, I think. But
and I
Mr.
fully
Chair.
understand, Mr. Chair, thank you. I fully understand where you're coming from, but I also understand that you could have people that are eligible that can't get on because somebody else that's not eligible is being on according to the 50%. That's my point.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. You know, that's how the voucher program has always worked. There's been a line for eligibility, but the goal of the program is to get people to a place where they are not paying more than 30% of their income on rent. And so the voucher stays with the family until they are able to pay, to not have to pay more than 30% of their income. That's always been the goal. It's how Section 8 works. It's how this program was built. That's always been the intent of the program.
Senator Murphy.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I really I appreciate the discussion. I appreciate the intention and the trying to clean things up so it's compliant. or aligned with the program federally. One of the aims of moving these bills early, and we are already moving our budget bills ahead of the break, is to make sure that people have time to see the bills, and if there are questions, to iron out those differences. And I really appreciate what Senator Draheim said about wanting to support this, but wanting to understand. So for those who are wrestling with this, we have a bit of time before we're going to see this on the floor. And just want to make sure people are clear about that, so that if there's some discussion that needs to happen, there's time for that to happen.
Senator Mohammed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think when I was bringing this forward with Senator Port, it literally is a technical amendment. So I will pull the amendment. Hopefully, we'll work with Senator Draheim and others in that process. But in terms of Section 8 program, I think it's a great federal program, and I will say my family has had the opportunity to take advantage of it. So if we're saying we're going to pick winners and choosers, that's certainly not the case. In a moment when the federal government is absolutely gutting the housing assistance program at the federal level, we have stepped up to do the work, and it is our moment, it is our opportunity to make sure that we continue to make sure that program works for every family who is eligible. Thank you.
Thank you. Senator Mohammed withdraws the 810 amendment. Before we go further, I wonder if Commissioner Ho wants to speak to the committee. Welcome to the committee.
Chair Marty, Vice Chair France, members of the committee, my name is Jennifer Ho, and I'm the Commissioner of Minnesota Housing. Thank you for the opportunity to testify this morning. I also want to thank Chair Port and Vice Chair Bolden, Minority Lead Lucero, as well as Senator Draheim and Senator Mohammed for all the conversations and dialogue this session about how to advance affordable housing in Minnesota. Everyone in the Senate Housing Committee is committed to achieving more housing as a state, and I feel good about our work together within the current budget context to move us toward the shared goal. I know Chair Port fought for significant housing investments more aligned to the needs of the state, and I'm grateful for the $3 million budget target. Supporting the agency's base programs that create and preserve housing opportunities will help thousands of renters, homeowners, developers, and owners across the state. We know it's not enough to meet the level of need, but these resources are critical to providing housing stability, creating new homes, and preserving the homes we have across the state. The bill also includes the agency's policy and technical bill language, which isn't flashy work, but it helps the agency be responsive and be better partners with our community partners year after year. Given the differences between House and Senate, we know there are tough decisions ahead. I'm encouraged knowing that our leaders, including those in this room, know that investments in housing are more than just investments in homes. They're investments in improved education, they're investments in better health outcomes, and they're investments in our economy. Stable homes lead to stable communities and better outcomes for us all. As the conversation continues in the coming weeks, my staff and I will be available to provide our support and technical assistance on bill language to help with implementation. Thank you again for your commitment to housing.
Thank you, Commissioner. Any questions from the committee? If not, thank you very much for being here. Further discussion on the bill. Senator Draheim.
Thank you. I just wanted to thank Senator Port for the bill. There are a lot of things in there that I really like. I am a little disappointed we don't have more unit production for that pathway to home ownership. But overall, I do like the bill, and I thank you for your work and your staff's help, the nonpartisan help, of course. So I will be supporting the bill, but I do think we need to focus more on that pathway to home ownership. Thank you.
Senator Port.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Draheim, I agree. It is obviously a different year with a $3 million bottom line. If you know, the Finance Committee wanted to add some money to our bottom line, I'd be happy to put some money into production. I do think a A critical piece of this bill is the investment in greater Minnesota infrastructure. We know that the biggest barrier to building in Minnesota is infrastructure, that cost is simply too much to bear at this point. And so putting some more into that program that we know is oversubscribed already, and building it into the base so that it starts to be an ongoing program, I hope will address that issue and help rise those costs. But I completely agree with you. We need more money for production. We need more homes built across Minnesota, and we are still working on some policies to help lower those costs and increase production.
Further discussion? If not, Senator Draheim, do you want to move the bill? Senator Draheim moves Senate File 2298 as amended be recommended to pass. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Port, for.
Thank you.
We have one other bill on the agenda. Senator Mann is coming down. She was in here. She said she'd be here in less than 2 minutes. So we will take a less than 2 minute pause. With that, this meeting's in recess until she enters the room. Is back in order. We have one bill remaining on the agenda, Senate File 509. Senator Mann.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Members, Senate File 509 is a bill to change how we license internationally practicing physicians. Right now, if you are a practicing physician in another country, you could have been practicing for 20 years. When you arrive in Minnesota, you are not allowed to practice medicine again until you essentially redo all of your training. Having to do residency all over again is not only unnecessary training that these physicians have already done, but it is a barrier to getting qualified, competent doctors back out into the field. And it may sound like no big deal until I tell you that we don't have enough residency slots for kids who are graduating medical school in America. So we are actually preventing people from practicing medicine because of lack of residency slots and not because they don't know how to practice medicine. There's an estimated 250 to 300 physicians ready to practice in Minnesota, but cannot because of these requirements. We have been working on this bill for several years. We have a broad coalition and bipartisan support, and there's also an A6 very technical amendment, Mr. Chair.
Senator Mohammed, would you move the A6 amendment?
So moved.
If so, it's technical amendment. Anybody have any questions about it? If not, all those in favor of the A6 amendment say aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. On the bill, Mr. Nauman, would you like to go through the fiscal note?
Mr. Chair, I will, if that's your pleasure. Members have a fiscal note in the packet. On the front page, it identifies $9,000 of cost in the general fund and some net effect to the Medical Practices Board from the health-related boards funds of 73 and then declining down to $33,000. The cost essentially through the fiscal note in the health-related boards and the Board of Medical Practice includes some IT costs associated with contractor development to make the changes associated with the bill. There's some ongoing maintenance costs, and there's some fees associated with the assumed increased licensure that will accrue to the state. Those net to the numbers that you see on the front page. There's some upfront costs that are associated with IT work. Then when you move to the Department of Health, there is some relatively small state program administrator costs associated with establishing a method for limited license holders to submit complaints to the department against their employer for not being paid. These are largely small costs, $9,000 on an ongoing basis, that the agency says it needs that $9,000 just to get the program up and running, or this new licensure up and running. Mr. Chair, at your pleasure, I can say how that will be paid for because I don't believe there's an intent to add appropriations here.
And as Mr. Nauman said, this bill is, the funding for this bill is being carried and tracked in the Health and Human Services bill. And we've seen that it's already being tracked there and everything else. And the agreement was that they're going to carry the appropriation language in that bill for this amendment. So they've committed to doing that, we'll do so. But Mr. Nauman, go ahead if you want to explain.
So, Mr. Chair, you just said exactly what I was going to say. I just didn't want to speak to it without your permission.
Sorry.
So, thank you very much.
Is there any discussion on the bill? Senator Draheim.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for bringing it forward, Senator Mann. I know this is something that's been worked on for years, and especially in the rural areas, we're really short of medical staff. I think this will help. I am a little disappointed that you have to carry it on a spreadsheet to pay for it. I think it should be absorbed into the agencies, is my opinion, but I know I can't change that. But if I was in leadership and the majority, I would make the agencies pay for it. So thank you.
Mr. Draheim, the other bill, we have to track those costs whether they're absorbed or not. We're tracking them. I have a feeling HHS committee is looking at how much to do with that. Senator Dames. Oh, Senator Howe. I saw
Thank
the
you,
wrong hand.
Mr. Chair, and I think the bill is fine. I said, but I've got a question on what we adopted as the amendment, and the question I have is why we took out lines 419 to 421 with regards to the ability of the board.
Senator Mann.
Mr. Chair, Senator Howard, that language is already in the bill, a few lines higher. It's just duplicative language.
Oh, I see it now, up on 410 to 413. Thank you.
Is there further discussion on the bill? If not, Senator Murphy.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. Senator Mann, this is such a good moment. It's such an important piece of legislation for Minnesota and in healthcare, and I'm grateful. And I can feel what Senator Draheim is suggesting deeply. I will say I can feel that, and so I'll talk with Senator Wickland. But I don't want to do anything that will jeopardize the progress on this much-needed proposal, and I'm grateful that you have found the way to bring it forward and hopefully make it law. Thank you.
Senator Murphy moves Senate File 509 as amended be recommended to pass. Is there further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion prevails. Thank you, Senator Mann. And with that, We're meeting tomorrow at 8:30 a.m. where we're taking up the Veterans and Ag Omnibus bills. And no further business. This meeting is adjourned.